The little dog bones are so cute. I'm going to pause for a minute so I can explain a little bit about what I'm doing here. So this is the Sweet Dreams Quilt Studio stockings. I'm stitching this at about 10 inches. And what it does, you lay out you have a backing fabric, come over this way, do this. You have a backing fabric that you lay down first, and then you put your padding on top of that, and then you put your stocking fabric on top of that. And then you're going to stitch this whole stocking out, one big piece, and you'll see I added a little bit of ribbon to the side. This is actually going to be the loop that allows me to hang the stocking. I like to stitch this in while I'm making the stocking, and then that way I don't have to add it after, because I don't like to hand stitch. So what this is going to do, I have customized this stocking with our dog's name, Valee. So if you're going to do a customized name, you put that in first, and then you stitch the stocking, and you stitch the design, and there's hundreds of these stocking designs to go in here, or you can customize and make your own. But so you'll stitch all of this out. Now when these designs are finished stitching, then we'll come back and we'll do the final step. So let's just finish this part. You'll notice I don't run my machine fast. I let it go kind of slow. I don't mind. I'm not really in a hurry, so I let it take its time. I'm stitching at about a speed of 13 with a stitch length of 12. And you'll also notice that on these stockings, when I do this, when I'm stitching these designs in here, I let it drag the threads because it creates less thread waste. And when it's all done stitching, I will go back and clip the threads before we add the top layer of fabric. Or I get impatient and I trim them while it's stitching. Although it looks like the stitch is really slow, it only takes about 20 minutes to make one of these stockings. even when it's dragging that thread a long ways, 3, 4, 5 inches, it still uses less thread to let it drag that and clip it after the fact than it does to cut every thread as it stops, because then you have to pull out, you know, a good 10 to 12 inches or so. So this I found to be less waste. I only do this on Christmas stockings because you don't see those long thread strands on the back of the stocking because it doesn't show. Alright, now you'll see it's moved all the way over. It's ready for the next step. So before we're going to do that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to clip all of these threads so that I can get this ready for the next step. Now, let me get my thread trash out of here. Okay, so on this, step back for a minute and take a picture of this whole thing. Or not a picture, but just, as you can see, I've got the fabric length hanging down below just like you would on a quilt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my quilt clamps off and I'm going to bring this fabric up to the top and we're going to fold it over on the top just like this, and I'm going to put a couple pins in just to hold it in place. I'm going to pull that under the needle so I can get it in the right spot. And see, I've got my loop here. I want to make sure that that is laying down flat before I put the fabric over it. So that's going towards the center of the stocking. That's where I want it. So I will pull this up. I'm going to pin it to my padding. And I've got one more pin over here I'm going to put in place. Make sure I've got enough of this fabric pulled up. Just like that. Now I'm going to put my quilt clamps back on to hold this fabric in place. Just like that. And now I know it's ready. I'm going to pull up my poppin thread. Because I had let my thread drag, I didn't really need to pull up my poppin thread. Now I need to rethread it. No, that did not work. There we go. That was hung up on that satin fabric. Okay, so when it's done stitching, you just cut your thread and move the machine out of the way. Let me get my scissors over here. So now that it's done stitching, all we have to do is cut the excess fabric away. Let me get my pins out of here. cutting this at this point, you don't have to be very specific or precise. I'm just trimming this to get the excess fabric out of the way so that I can do another stocking. And if you take a look at this, it has stitched this entire outline except for a little 3 to 4 inch hole. When we cut this off of all of this backing fabric, this is going to be where we turn the stocking inside out. And this piece on top will become the liner, and what you'll see on the outside will be all the pretty stitching that we did with, on this one, the dog bones and the dog biscuits. So now, I have all of this fabric cut away, and I am ready to do another stocking right over here. I'm a little bit short on my batting, so I will just, because this is a Christmas stocking, it doesn't have to be very specific. I am just going to add a little scrap of batting right to the side of that. These stockings really can be made with very little waste. I use a lot of scrap. And I'm not going to spend much time lining that up or getting it perfect because it's a Christmas stocking and it is not going to show. So that's it for now. We'll stop and we'll come back when we are cutting these away, and I'll show you how you finish these off.
Go ahead.
Okay, so now we have everything all stitched. I have cut it apart and I'm getting ready to trim it out. And so this is what we saw on the top when we stitched this out, but this is not the side that you want to be looking at when you're trimming it. So when you see all of this, you're going to flip it over so that you can look at the other side. Now you can see both lines of stitching here. And what we want to do is take a rotary cutter and cut as close to this second line as we possibly can. You don't have to get super precise with this. You just want to cut right along the edge. Try not to cut into your stitching. You can see I'm maybe roughly about a 1/4 inch away from that. You can get closer if you want, but it really doesn't matter because none of this is going to show. You just want to have it trimmed close enough that you can turn it inside out and have that seam lay flat. Now down here, this is where the opening is. This is where we're going to sew that closed in a minute. So I leave a little bit extra down there because I want to have enough to be able to tuck that to the inside and pin it when I get ready to stitch it closed. So now you can see I've got just a little bit extra right here, and that's going to leave me enough room to pin that and stitch it closed. So now we have everything all trimmed and we're ready to turn it inside out. So now we get to see the pretty side of the stocking. So I just stick my hand in there and grab the foot of the boot of the stocking and pull it all the way to the inside or out. And then I put my hand back in so that I can kind of smooth out that curve just a little bit, just like that. See, now you can see how pretty that is. We've got our nice little loop stitched. And this is going to be the area that we pin right here. So what we'll do is we will fold this in and pin that and then take it over to the domestic machine and stitch that closed. Then, once we have that stitch closed, we're going to tuck this part, the second half of the stocking. We're going to take this and we're going to tuck it to the inside of the stocking. And then you pull that up and you'll be able to see the line right across the top. This stitch line right here, that's the top of your stocking. And then you can see how nice that lays, just like that. And then you've got your cute little hook that you can hang it high. And that's a perfect little stocking. Not bad for about 25 minutes work.